There are questions you want to ask your doctor but never get the chance. Perhaps the appointment is too short, you feel unheard, or you're afraid of what the response might be. Today I'm answering the 7 questions I hear most often from people with IBD. No rushing, no dismissing, just honest answers. And by the end of this video, you will have clarity on the questions that have been sitting unanswered and a better understanding of what is actually going on in your body. Perhaps you leave appointments with more questions than answers. You Google at 2 a.m. and feel more confused. You wonder if your concerns are valid or if you're simply overthinking. You deserve direct answers from someone who understands what you're going through. And believe me, I do. I'm Rachel Sarah Brown, and after 23 years in medicine, I'm working with hundreds of people with IBD or major gut inflammation. I know the questions that keep coming up. They keep coming up because they are the ones that matter most and get answered the least. I'm going to answer 7 questions directly. No hedging, no medical jargon, just the truth about what is happening and what you can do about it. So the first question is this: should I take probiotics? Well, that depends on timing and terrain. For most people with active inflammation, my answer is usually not yet. Probiotics are helpful for a healthy gut, but when your gut is inflamed, your barrier is compromised, and your system is still reactive, adding bacteria can make things worse. I've seen people who started probiotics and got more bloated, more uncomfortable, more symptomatic. That is not because probiotics are inherently bad. It is because the terrain was not ready. The gut environment needs to stabilize first. Once inflammation is calmer and the barrier is more intact, specific strains introduced strategically can help. But the blanket advice to just take a probiotic ignores context entirely. Probiotics are not a first step. They're a later step, and only for some people. Timing matters more than the strain on the bottle. So focus on calming inflammation and stabilizing the gut environment should happen first. If you're currently taking probiotics and feeling worse, consider pausing them. When you do introduce them, do it strategically with specific strains, not random products. But probiotics are not the only thing people wonder about. Another question I often get asked is, why am I so tired all the time? And that's because your cells are not producing enough energy, and nobody's measuring that. Fatigue in IBD is not just about being busy or not sleeping enough. It is a cellular energy problem. Your mitochondria, the power plants in every cell, are struggling. Chronic inflammation drains energy. A compromised gut barrier means your body is constantly firefighting. Your nervous system stuck in survival mode burns through reserves. All of this depletes the very energy your body needs to function and repair, as well as depleting key minerals in the body. Standard blood tests do not measure mitochondrial function, so you get told your labs are fine when you can barely get through the day. The fatigue is real, and it's biological, and it requires addressing the foundations of energy production, not just taking another B vitamin. And I can tell you this, you're not lazy and you're not dramatic. Your cells are depleted. That is a biological problem with biological solutions. Stop dismissing fatigue as normal or something to push through. Address circadian rhythm, sleep quality, and nervous system regulation. Recognize that persistent fatigue is a signal that energy production needs support. And this connects directly to the next question I hear constantly. Why do I still feel awful if my markers are not that bad? And sometimes it's the opposite. You feel good and yet your markers are pretty bad in the lab. It's because your markers measure inflammation, not energy, capacity, or resilience. CRP and calprotectin are useful but have their limits. They tell you about inflammatory activity at a single point in time, a snapshot. They do not tell you how depleted your cells are, how dysregulated your nervous system is, or how fragile your gut barrier has become. You can have acceptable markers and still feel exhausted, foggy, and unstable because the things driving your daily experience are not being measured. Your lived experience is valid data. The tests are incomplete. Not wrong, but incomplete. And when you feel awful despite acceptable labs, it means something is happening that the tests are not capturing. Your labs are fine does not mean you are fine. It means the labs are not measuring what is actually wrong. Trust your experience. It is telling you something the tests cannot. Look beyond inflammatory markers to energy, sleep, stress capacity, and nervous system state. Stop waiting for validation from labs that were never designed to measure what you are feeling. Which brings me to a question about diet that causes endless confusion. If these answers are giving you the clarity you've been looking for, subscribe. I post weekly on IBD, gut health, and the questions that actually matter. So, do I need to restrict my diet forever? No is the answer to this one. Temporary restriction is strategic. Permanent fear of food is a problem. When your gut is inflamed and reactive, temporarily removing irritants makes sense. It reduces the load, it gives the system space to calm down. But that is not the same as living in restriction forever. The goal should be to heal and rebuild tolerance, not to shrink your diet until you're terrified of eating. I see people who've eliminated so many foods they are malnourished, stressed, and more reactive than ever. The restriction that was supposed to help has become its own source of harm. Temporary simplification is a tool. Permanent elimination driven by fear is a trap that I would never wish upon anyone. I've been there, believe me. The goal is not to find the diet you can survive on. The goal is to heal so you can eat more freely again without having to second guess everything. You should use elimination strategically and temporarily, not as a permanent lifestyle. Focus on healing the gut so you can reintroduce foods over time. If your diet keeps shrinking with no improvement, the problem is not the food. But there's another pattern I see that confuses people even more. Why do I flare when I travel or get stressed? This is a big one. Because your nervous system directly controls your gut function, and stress dysregulates everything. Your gut and brain are connected through the vagus nerve. When you're stressed, traveling, sleep deprived, or out of routine, your nervous system shifts into survival mode. Blood flow moves away from digestion, gut motility changes, barrier function weakens, and immune regulation falters. This is not psychological or in your head. This is physiology. Travel combines multiple stressors: disrupted sleep, non-native EMF exposure, unfamiliar food, heightened alertness. Your nervous system reads all of this as threat, and when the nervous system perceives threat, the gut suffers. The flare is not random. It's your body responding to conditions that destabilize it. Stress is not in your head, it's in your gut. Your nervous system does not distinguish between work pressure and physical danger, it just responds. Do your flares correlate more with stress and disruption than with specific foods? Does your gut settle when life calms down, even without changing your diet? Do you notice symptoms worsen after poor sleep, travel, or emotional strain? If yes, your nervous system is a primary driver. Addressing it is not optional. Treat nervous system regulation as a core part of your IBD management. Before travel, prioritize sleep, minimize other stressors, and keep food simple. Build nervous system practices into daily life, not just during crises. And this leads to a question that reveals a deeper fear. Can I actually get better, or is this forever? I would say yes, you can get better. But better requires addressing what could be causing the problem in the first place, not just managing symptoms. You've probably been told IBD is something you manage forever. That framing is incomplete. Yes, you have a condition that requires attention, but the trajectory is not fixed. I've seen clients reduce flare frequency dramatically. I've seen people come off medications they were told they would need for life. I've seen markers normalize and stay stable. I've seen clients avoid admissions for immunotherapy, and those were urgent admissions. This does not happen through suppression alone. It happens when you address the upstream drivers: cellular energy, nervous system regulation, gut barrier integrity, microbiome health, and redox potential. When you restore the conditions for healing, the body can regulate itself in ways that surprised even me early in my career. Forever is not a medical fact. It's a failure of imagination about what is possible. You're not sentenced to a life of management. You're capable of more stability and resilience than you have been told, but it requires a different approach. Stop accepting just manage it as the final word. Shift focus from suppression to restoration. Find practitioners who believe in your capacity to heal, not just cope. But there's one more question that I think matters more than all of the others. What is the one thing that would make the biggest difference? Restore your cellular energy. Everything else is secondary. If I could only teach one thing, it would be this: your body cannot heal without adequate energy. Your gut lining needs energy to repair. Your immune system needs energy to regulate. Your nervous system needs energy to shift out of survival mode. And every process that would calm your inflammation and rebuild your resilience is energy dependent. Most IBD treatment ignores this entirely. It focuses on suppressing symptoms without asking whether the body has the power to actually heal. When cellular energy is restored, the body can do what it is designed to do. Inflammation calms not because you forced it, but because the system finally has the resources to regulate itself. You cannot supplement, medicate, or diet your way to health if your cells do not have the energy to use those inputs. Energy first, everything else follows. So tonight, do this. Assess your energy honestly. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your cellular energy level? Not motivation, physical energy I'm talking about. If it's below 6, this is likely your primary constraint. Everything else is secondary. Identify what's draining you. Is it poor sleep? Is it chronic stress? Have you got circadian disruption? Overtraining? What's your emotional load? Energy is lost to these drains. You cannot restore it while the leaks continue. Identify what restores you. Is it morning light, consistent sleep, nervous system regulation, rest without guilt, minerals? How are you doing on that front? These are not luxuries. They are the conditions for energy production. So pick one question from today that resonated the most. What was the answer you most needed to hear? Let that guide your focus this week. Write down this sentence. My body can heal when it has the energy to heal. Read it when you feel hopeless. It is not a platitude. It's biology, and it is true. These 7 questions reveal the core struggles of living with IBD: confusion about probiotics, unexplained fatigue, labs that don't match your experience, fear of food, stress-driven flares, uncertainty about the future, and the search for the one thing that would make the biggest difference. The answers all point in the same direction. Your body is not broken. It is under-resourced. Restore the resources, especially cellular energy, and everything shifts. That is not hope. That is physiology. The questions you're afraid to ask are usually the ones that matter the most. Today I answered 7 of them directly because you deserve clarity, not generic advice. Your fatigue is real. Your brain fog is real. Your experience is valid even when tests say otherwise. You're not sentenced to restriction and management forever. And the single most important thing you can do is restore the energy your cells need to heal. That is not complicated, but it does require focusing on the right things. Now you know what those are. In the next video, I share my personal health journey and everything I've learned about IBD and gut health from 23 years in medicine. Click the link on the screen to watch that now.